Hello and welcome to the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. You are joined by two of the usual hosts here. We've got Mr. Tom Mannering.
Hello.
Hello, and myself, Josh Hartley. Tom, how are you doing this week?
I'm good. When you introduced me there, I very nearly waved and realised how that wouldn't work for the listening audience.
That's fair.
I'm good. I'm doing decent. Had a bit of role playing on the go, as is per use.
Yes.
Played a bit of gaming solo, which we'll maybe talk about later. And been enjoying some reasonably nice weather for Scotland, which has been a luxury.
It's gorgeous outside, isn't it?
It is.
And we're in here recording a podcast. So
we're in our respective homes, shuttered in, windows closed.
Soon.
How are you, Josh? Is the more pressing question. I think the people want to know.
Do the people want to know? Do they really want to know, given the rant that I've just had before we started recording? Oh, guys. Right. I feel that, here's the thing, I feel like every week now I'm saying, oh, work's been a pain. But it has. That's the truth. It's just recently been pretty difficult. And relatively pretty difficult, I should say. I acknowledge I'm not gonna have my head completely up my own arse. I acknowledge that people out there are doing much tougher jobs than I am, and are that has been impacted way more than mine has by COVID. You know, anyone who's working in healthcare, in the police force, or in education, they've had absolute horrendous. Possibly the worst 12 months of their professional lives. So, yeah, don't get out all the little violins for me, because I'm having people getting annoyed at me because we won't lend them money. But right, not to act in your defence for a change, but I don't think the fact that just because you do a job that is maybe not as challenging in the current environment, that diminishes the fact that you can have a comparatively more difficult week at work, right? I think the two are not mutually exclusive. You can still have a tough week, especially if you're acknowledging that it's a tough week for you. Yeah. No, that's a fair point. This is one of these, I don't know, if your mum does this, right? My mum says this. I'm calling my mum out on the podcast. I'm going to get in trouble for this, but whatever.
Does your mum listen to this podcast?
No, but my dad does.
Okay.
So from time to time.
I am so sorry, Josh's parents, for all the things I've said about your son.
Dude, they find it funny.
Okay, no, I'm a nice boy.
So dad, don't grass me into mum, right? But so if I'm talking to my mum and I'm having a bit of a moan about something, one thing my mum used to say was, well, you know, count your blessings. It could be worse. There are children starving in Africa, and that sort of stuff. I'm like, oh well, great. Well, now I still feel bad, but I feel guilty on top of it for feeling bad.
Yeah, I get that. My mum did I don't think she ever used necessarily that exact turn of phrase, but there were certainly very similar sort of comparisons made of, you know, thank you lucky stars. And I think it's a fair point to make, but it does not diminish how you feel. And I think you can feel bad or sad or whatever, and still accept that there are people in far worse situations than pretty much anyone in the Western world is going to be, right? You know, comparatively. So yeah, you can keep that nice dose of guilt on top of all the other issues you've got as well.
I mean, I was brought up a Catholic, so, you know,
guilt's part of the course, right?
Guilt is just built into my DNA. So Catholic, white, middle class man, guilt.
Well deserved guilt as well.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, anyway. before I go completely off the reservation, then shall we discuss a little bit of tabletop gaming news, and then maybe have a bit of a chat about gaming stuff we've been up to?
Sure, I think we could do that. That's allegedly what this podcast is about, right?
Yeah, guys, we're a tabletop gaming podcast, right? So let's start with Munchkin. We're getting there's a new Munchkin game available in stores now. This is Munchkin Critical Role, specifically a Mighty 9 game. Now, you're a big fan of Critical Role, right?
I am.
I don't know who the Mighty 9 are, other than I believe that is the sort of second season of Critical Role.
Yeah, so the Mighty 9 are the cast, are the characters, the main characters, the PCs of the second season of Critical Role. So the first season was Vox Machina, the second season is the Mighty 9. So this Munchkin set is themed around the second season of Critical Role.
Cool. The artwork looks really nice.
Yeah.
I'll definitely give it that. I have no idea if mechanically they're introducing anything different or doing anything new with this. My suspicion is it is Munchkin with a different skin on, which they've done a number of different times. You've got a couple of different copies of Munchkin. In fact, we were saying before.
I do, yeah. So I have basic Munchkin, the default game from like. God, I don't know. I was playing Munchkin when I was in my late teens, so it must be 25 years old now. No, that can't be right. 20 years old, probably. But yeah, I've got that. I've got the Marvel Munchkin as well. And I've seen so many others. I mean, it's been Cthulhu Munchkin, Space Munchkin, Cowboy Munchkin,
40k Munchkin.
40k Munchkin, Pathfinder Munchkin.
Yeah.
There's been pretty much all of the above. And they all tend to come down to the same core principles, but they may have a little bit of a variation just to give them a bit of clarity. So I think what I've seen from this one is I think you select a member of the Mighty 9 to play, and that is kind of your character.
Oh, so it's not normal like where you get randomly given like a class or a race or whatever to go with?
I don't think so. I'm not. Don't quote me on it, but I had a look at some of the pictures and things, and without reading the rules or deep diving into it, that's kind of what I've taken away from it. It's like you'll play like Ford, which is Travis's character, or not, which is Sam's character, and then you'll kind of build on that and kind of gather things in. I think it's weird though. Like I don't know. It's a weird one with Munchkin, right? Because Munchkin's quite a competitive game. Like it's this weird game where you have sort of a pseudo party. You kind of work together, but then you're looking to kind of backstab each other and eventually sort of win the game by reaching level 10 first. And I always found that quite an odd concept to apply to certain settings. This being one of them. Like the Mighty 9, while they do have a little bit of party bickering and things, I wouldn't say as a group they are racing for one to outdo the others. The same with like Marvel Munchkin as well. Superheroes generally aren't looking to really backstab each other to become sort of the top dog. So I always think that's a bit of a weird element of Munchkin when you bolt on these different IPs. But at the same time, I think it's quite fun to just kind of have these IPs in a quick play game like this that you can just have a bit of fun and a laugh with. So don't take it too seriously.
Yeah, I'll tell you my issue with the original Munchkin, which I actually think like all these different reskins address. So my thing with Munchkin is super simple game, right? Very easy to pick up. So you would think perfect like entry point game if you were trying to introduce people to tabletop gaming as a hobby, right? Here's the problem though, all the humour that's in the original Munchkin relies, maybe not entirely relies, but a lot of it you would pick up only by playing Dungeons and Dragons, right? Yep. It's all like references to things like gelatinous cubes and beholders and all of. You have to be. I don't think it's unfair to say like fairly familiar with what like tabletop role playing games are, right?
Even going so far as like specific items as well, because there's like in the original Munchkin there's like the singing and dancing sword, which is a spoof on the dancing swords that you could get in D&D, which is a very specific reference. You know, it goes beyond just being a casual D&D player. I think you're right. Yeah, it's definitely very much a spoof on something you need to have a conscious awareness of. So I can kind of see where you're going with this.
If you have that conscious awareness of, you're probably not an entry point gamer, and if you are an entry point gamer, there's all these jokes that like presumably everyone else at the table is getting a bit of a kick out of, and you're just going, I don't understand any of this. Like, but this is why I'm saying, like, actually I kind of think the IP reskins that they do, it kind of makes sense from that point of view, right? Because it is an entry point game, and you know, everyone knows Marvel, right? Or like any one of these various IPs that they've applied it to. So I get that. I mean, like as a game, I think it's like fine. Like I wouldn't be psyched to play, like sit down at game night, just go, right, who's up for Munchkin? But if someone really wanted to play it, I'd be like, yeah, sure, let's give it a bash.
So Munchkin's a kind of game, I see it as a filler game. So it's kind of a good one to pull out if you just need to fill some time. Or you just need something to be doing while you're having like a conversation. The way I measure games on two scales. There are the games I will play because they are there, and they are the games I will go to someone's house to play.
Sure.
Munchkin is not a game. If you said, hey Tom, do you want to come over on Saturday? Breaking lockdown rules, right? But no, do you want to come over on Saturday and play Munchkin? I'd be like, not really, no. But if you were like, hey Tom, do you want to come over and hang out on Saturday? We'll watch, a TV show or something. And I came over and you were like, hey, why don't we have a quick game of Munchkin? Did you hear? I'd be like, yeah, sure, why not? So I think it's that kind of game for me. It's not a draw game. It's because it's their game.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as well. It's like if you're at a game night and you're still waiting for other people to arrive, it kind of fills that role. I think there are other games that fill that role and maybe do it a bit better, but it's not a bad game by any stretch. No. I've had fun playing it, so it's I think it's how old now?
I think it must be 20 plus years old. At least.
Yeah, it's definitely came out in the 90s. Right?
I don't know if it's that old. Maybe the back end of the 90s at a stretch.
Google answers all. Hold on.
You're ruining the fun of speculation here.
Well, we can leave the speculation in and then. Okay, so... Munchkin, card game. Alright, what's your prediction?
Like late 90s at a push?
Oh my god, they've done so many expansions to it.
Oh yeah.
I think... I'm trying to find in the Wikipedia article when it actually first got published. But it won some awards in 2000 and 2001, which would suggest to me it was released in like 1999 or 2000, right?
So according to the Munchkin card game wiki, it was released in 2008, but that can't be right.
No.
Because how can it win awards before it was even released? That just doesn't track at all.
Munchkin won the 2001 Origins Award for Best Traditional Card Game.
So I think I'm right. I think it's like 99, maybe 2000.
Yeah.
Because I remember
that fits, right?
I remember playing it when I was at college, which would have been sort of 99.
I hate saying out loud, oh yeah, I was in sixth form at this year.
Hang on, no, I was in college in 2000. So yeah, that seems to track.
Because we're about the same age, right?
I'm 84. When were you?
86.
So a couple of years.
We were born in 1984 and 1986. to be clear,
we're not Highlanders. Like we're not.
So Munchkin Critical Role is out now in local gaming stores for you to pick up. There is another new release that we want to touch on. I can't remember if we actually said anything about this in a previous episode, but there is a new expansion to Marvel Champions that you yourself have picked up as well.
I have, yeah. I think I did mention on a previous episode that I had received it, but I hadn't really said anything since then. So yeah, there is Marvel Champions Galaxy's Most Wanted, which is kind of the Marvel Champions foray into the Guardians of the Galaxy expansions, which is awesome. You know, they're very popular since the MCU became a thing. It's so weird to think about it. Like, if you go back prior to the film, nobody knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were, and that film was considered a risk as well for Marvel. A lot of people were like, oh, you know, these aren't known entities. This isn't, you know, Iron Man and Hulk and things like that. This is a more niche group. And now they're arguably some of the more popular characters in the MCU and in general. So yeah, I've got the Galaxy's Most Wanted. That came out a couple of weeks ago. It's awesome. I've not got around to playing it yet. I'm still working my way through Marvel Champions. It's a funny thing because, like, we played Marvel Champions, myself, you, and Ben, and Callum as well, when it first released, and I got it. And then I kept buying it, ready to sort of play it with you again, and that was kind of when lockdown hit. And since lockdown's hit, there's now been like 2 box expansions as well as some smaller expansions. So I've got loads of stuff that I've not had a chance to play. So I eventually broke a few months ago and started kind of dabbling in solo play just to start getting through some of the content, because I'm never going to get a chance to get through it otherwise. And I've really been enjoying it. I played I've started the Rise of the Red Skull, which was the last box expansion before this one, and that's got an actual campaign mode in it, and I'm really enjoying that. Yeah, that's really cool because it's a bit like Arkham Horror. Is it Arkham Horror?
Arkham Horror's the card game. Yeah,
it's a bit like Arkham Horror Light. I don't think it's as dense as the campaign mode is for that and as fleshed out, but there are elements that carry over. You get cards to add to your deck. The enemies get depending on how well you do, the enemies get certain cards added to their decks as well. So I've really been enjoying it. I've been playing it as Ant-Man, which is quite fun. I found him to be quite OP because you can flip between being really small and really big, which has some really good game versatility.
Is that the card that actually opens up when he goes giant? Yeah, that's really cool.
It's the folding one.
I like the pessimist in me looks at that and just goes, "That's gonna tear over years to come now." But it's a still really cool idea, right?
Yeah, no, it is. It's a lot of fun. The thing I really like about Marvel Champions, not to get too deep dive on it, but it's got a really good way of representing each hero's unique elements to them, and it does the same with the villain decks as well. I played it with you just before lockdown, I think, and we played against the Wrecking Crew.
Was that just before lockdown, or was that like in that little bit of summer last year where we could actually hang out at each other's house?
It might have been, when it was eased for a little while. But we played against the Wrecking Crew, and they feel very different because you're fighting 4 villains than a normal villain deck where you're just fighting 1. And I found that, like, some of the villains just the way they interact with certain heroes is really brutal. Like, for example, I was playing against Taskmaster, who's going to appear in the new Black Widow film, and his whole thing is he adapts to the hero's techniques. And the way they represent that in the card game is whenever you turn from your mundane form, your alter ego, your secret identity, whatever you want to call it, into your superhero form, you take damage because he preempts your actions.
Sure.
And that works really brutally against Ant-Man, because every time Ant-Man turns from big to small, it still counts as him turning into his hero form. So he preempts your changes back and forth. And it's just these little bits of sort of synergy and counteraction in the cards that add a bit of character to it. So yeah, I've been really enjoying that, and I'm looking forward to getting around to Galaxy's Most Wanted. You got Rocket and Groot as the 2 characters in that one. And you got villain-wise. Oh, who did you get? Oh, you get God, what's his name? He's in the Guardians of the Galaxy film. He's the main bad guy, and I've just completely blanked on his name. Ronan the Accuser.
There we go.
You get Ronan the Accuser. You get the Collector, as well, who was played by Benicio del Toro in the films. Yes. And I think there's someone else as well, but my mind's blanking. Oh, Nebula.
Right, well, okay. So out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films I've seen, Guardians is my favourite. I stopped watching them after the second Avengers film, though, which Tom still is just shaking his head solemnly.
I just think it's disgusting. I cannot understand how in this day and age you cannot watch the Marvel Cinematic.
It's not that I cannot watch it. It's just like there's things I'd rather do.
No,
you know.
No, I don't accept that.
No, you just can't accept that.
I can't. I admit I'm biased, right? I grew up reading comic books. Like the MCU was a fantasy for me as a kid. You know, to see these things that I really loved brought to life in the way they are now, especially in a coherent and connected universe. I am very much sort of the target audience for that side of things. But I just find it weird, like, that people can't, because there's such a major part of the popular culture zeitgeist now.
Yeah. Well, it's not. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just like there's just things I would rather do. But here's the thing for me. Like, I am not a big film or TV guy at all. Like, I mean, I still haven't watched Game of Thrones, right? And
again, another popular zeitgeist that you avoided.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. And, when we were talking about Falcon and Winter Soldier earlier, I'm like, no. WandaVision, no.
I mean, you did watch The Mandalorian eventually.
Yes, and I'm so glad I did, because that was awesome. Still haven't watched Solo, though. So
Solo's fine.
Yeah, that's usually what people say about Solo. It's like, it's not bad. Yeah. It's not as bad as it probably should be on paper, but like, it's
It's got redeeming qualities as much as it's got people that don't like it as well. I know what you spend some of your time doing. Like, you've told me, and that's not to sound sinister or creepy, but like, I know you watch like Let's Plays of people playing like war games and stuff like that.
I really enjoy that.
And I'm like, how could you watch that and not watch the MCU?
I can't explain. Do you know what? Like, I watch like more YouTube videos than I do regular TV. Sure. And the thing that the stuff that I watch is like, battle reports of like Warhammer, people playing Magic the Gathering, and for some reason, I don't know why, I find it really relaxing and chilling just watching speedrunners play like old Mario games. Like, I can't explain it, right?
You're a weird dude.
I mean, to be fair, right, Games Done Quick is like massively popular, so I'm definitely not alone in the enjoying watching speedruns thing.
No, that's fair enough, and I'm not here to yuck anyone's yums, but at the same time, like that, it just baffles me, man. It just, if I were in your shoes, I would feel troubled and deprived. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, I'll watch them at some point, I guess. I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but like,
good point.
Yeah. Tom's gonna come around with a Kalashnikov and like just go, we're gonna watch the MCU now.
I mean, you've missed some crackers like Thor Ragnarok. You'd love Thor Ragnarok.
I've heard that's fantastic.
Like, you would be all over that. The Infinity Saga, the tail end of that.
I hear Black Panther's great.
Black Panther's amazing. Yeah, Ant-Man 2's amazing. Like, there's just so much. Just why? Anyway, moving on, please.
We are a tabletop gaming podcast, and that is what we talk about. We have one other bit of big news. This is like actual national news, really. Monday, the 12th of April, we'll see a lot of non-essential retail reopening for the first time in months. This is including, and they did a press release on this, Games Workshop reopening their Warhammer stores and detailing all the measures that they're putting in place to keep people safe throughout the pandemic. But it also is going to include your local gaming store as well. So we wanted to highlight that. Say how much a good thing it is actually to have these shops reopening. Particularly the independent guys, because this has been rough on them. Mm-hmm. And maybe just have a chat about like how it's going to be different, I suppose, this time around. You know, I think it's going to be a long time before we can go to our local gaming store and sit down and have a game of something, which is something I'm looking forward to getting back into. But nice that they're reopening, though, at least, right?
It's a step in the right direction, right? Like it's and I think without getting too political, I was a bit wary the last time lockdown measures were eased, and I felt it was too much too soon. And I'm not saying I don't feel that at all this time, but I certainly feel it less so. You know, we've got the vaccines starting to get rolled out. We've got, you know, a general improvement, and I think, I certainly think, and I hope we're going into this a little more aware, having learned a bit of a lesson from last time. And I know there are people out there that haven't learned any lessons, and idiots will always be idiots, right? Like there's no getting around that.
Can't fix stupid.
Yeah, but you know, I think we've come I don't want to say a long way. We've come away.
We've took a couple of steps.
Yeah, to maybe learning a bit of the lesson. So I certainly hope this is here to stay. But I hope it's kind of done at the right pace. And I will say, Games Workshop especially, as much as I am the first person to sort of call bullshit on things like the Lumineth Realm Lords and all that jazz, I will say Games Workshop have handled the lockdown really well. The way they kind of treated the staff was really good. I still have a few friends from my time in Games Workshop, and I know they are very conscious with what they're kind of rolling out at the moment. So I don't feel that they're in any risk, you know, than anywhere else would be anyway. And they seem to be doing things right, which is good.
Yeah, sure, absolutely, and that's the number one priority is like everyone staying safe as well. Like, I'm not in a hurry to go back to my local GW or the various gaming stores that I'll pop into. Although, like, I don't know about you, I've got I think it's the Zoe COVID app where I'm like reporting like whether I'm feeling sick or not each day, and in return they tell you some stats about what's going on in your local area. So I actually get like a little bit of an estimate as to how many cases are happening in Glasgow, which is frightening and anxiety-inducing when things are really bad. But see, when things are improving like they are now, it's quite comforting. Yeah. So maybe when I see that start to dwindle to the point we were at last summer, I might feel a bit more confident about going into a shop and spending my money with a local business, you know.
I think the big difference for me from last summer to this summer, and this is what I was conscious of last summer, was we didn't have a vaccine. We had nothing. Yes. There had realistically been no change apart from a few measures put in place. People largely wearing masks, but not exclusively wearing, you know, not across the board. And you know, some stores taking measures, but there were plenty of times, and I'm sure this happened to you. In fact, myself and you met up for a drink when things were eased, and we were sitting in a socially distanced pub, and we had two people literally walk within millimeters of us, despite all these rules about, you know, keeping distance and all this kind of stuff, and they weren't wearing masks. And that was the last time I went into town before things were locked back down, because I was like, right, I appreciate we're maybe in a better position, but we're not there. And the difference now, I feel, is most people have started to get at least the first vaccine, or are certainly on their way to it. Some people I know have already had the second vaccine as well.
Yeah.
And it does seem to be having a positive impact. So fingers crossed, we're in a better position and we don't have to go back into full body lockdown again.
God forbid. Like,
it's weird though. Like, go on. Sorry.
No, all I was going to say, the last year has just been a complete. It's been science fiction.
Sure.
Like this feels like a film.
Yeah.
Like, that we've been playing out for 12 months plus.
It's unreal. Like, I agree with you there. It's felt very surreal. And things like I'm a bit of a house mouse. Like, I'm quite happy to stay in the house. You know, I'm not a big, like, you know, random Saturday afternoon, let's go and walk up a hill. Like, no, fuck that noise. I'm not interested in that. Like, you know, I like doing my own thing around the house, but even for someone like myself who does like that kind of lifestyle, you still want to have the option to go and see your friends. You still want to have the option to go to the cinema. You still want to have the option, you know, to go and do things and go abroad and things like that, you know. And we've had 12 months where we haven't largely been able to do those things, except for a few small reprieves that I would argue we maybe shouldn't have had. It's going to be strange going back to it, I think. I'm not at the stage where I'm going to be like is it xenophobic? No, xenophobic's outside, where you don't like going outside.
Agoraphobic.
Agoraphobic, thank you. I'm not at the stage where I'm going to be agoraphobic and be like, I can't go out here, but at the same time, meeting like a group of people is going to be a little bit jarring and a little bit like not being...
Yeah, it's going to be that... I keep seeing the meme of like everyone once lockdown restrictions are lifted, and it's that awkward scene of Dr. Evil hugging Seth Green's character in Austin Powers. So... Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm looking forward to it though. We're definitely doing... I keep saying we're going to do a trip to New York. And I'm not joking. I really want to do it.
No, so do I. So 100%. I'm well up for that. I would love to go. It's funny because we were discussing that like literally before lockdown sort of hit, and it was like probably have to postpone that for a little bit.
Yes, for a significant length of time, unfortunately.
Yeah. But no, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Oh, right. Anyway, so that pretty much covers off the news. So. Gaming wise, what have we been up to? Well. We've both been playing more Age of Sigmar Soulbound.
I was wondering where you were going with that. Okay, yep, we have been doing that. That is true.
Yeah. So Scott continues to run the campaign. We've been bloody stranded, and now we're trying to make our way back to the city through this nasty jungle. It was a tough session last night, but a good one, I think.
Yeah, it was. I was saying to you after the session, I haven't connected as well with Age of Sigmar as you and Ben necessarily have as a role-playing game. But I think last night's session was my favourite so far, bar one element, which I will touch on briefly. But it was the session I felt the most kind of connected to, the kind of the group moving through the jungle, finding like some corpses that had been killed by like what are essentially Tzeentch crows.
Well, no, because they've been infected by Nurgle's rot. So presumably, well, no, there's some Tzeentch birds flying overhead.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, but there's some Nurgle stuff going on there as well, so we don't know.
Let's get into that.
Oh, sorry. I'll stop interrupting.
So rude.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and you kind of chewed the end off my story. Now they had been infected by Nurgle's rot, so that was kind of cool. And then we like continued exploring, and we got attacked by a massive spider,
Arachnarok,
which is a great name, to be fair. And that was cool because I actually remember that model getting released when I worked at Games Workshop.
It's still great, isn't it?
I had to build that bugger like for presentation. It's a big boy. Like it is a big boy, and we found that it was kind of our first time properly encountering a monster in Soulbound. We had a little bit of a run-in with one on the ship, but that was fairly quick, and I think we got quite lucky with that one. Whereas this one was like the three of us versus this massive Arachnarok, and it was a harsh learning curve, I would probably say.
Yeah, it was rough. We had to run away, basically. Yeah. But that's sometimes... It's sometimes the right thing to do, because, you're no good dead late in these games. I actually see the moment I realised that it was an Ragnarok, I actually thought to myself, is this one of these scenarios where we, as the players, are supposed to run away from it? Because RPGs do throw that at you from time to time. It's sort of like testing your threat assessment and just going, we can't beat that thing. Let's get out of here.
I don't even necessarily think it's testing your threat assessment, although that is a valid take on it. But I think it's really important. I do it sparingly as a GM, but I will do it on occasion, because I think it's important to establish to the players that while you might think you are the big fish, you're not, and there are still things in this world, this setting, whatever it is, that are going to be so much more powerful for you, and that you're not going to be able to go up against. But it's interesting because that's a good example of where we went up against it and we were like, we cannot beat this for a number of reasons, or if we can beat it, casualties are going to be high. And we bailed, right? We were just like, nah, this is done. But I had a similar experience. I was playing 5th edition D&D a couple of weeks ago, and we had a similar experience where we're playing Rime of the Frost Maiden, which is kind of set in a frozen north settlement. I think it's called Rime of the Frost Maiden. I'm questioning myself now. But anyway, and we met a bunch of Yeti hunters, and they were like, oh, we're going to hunt this Yeti. And we were like, oh, hunt a Yeti, that sounds like great fun. So we joined these hunters and went Yeti hunting. And we found a Yeti. And the GM was less than subtle about, this is not a good idea, when we were kind of encountering this thing. But we won. We got quite lucky. Okay. And we actually, despite how challenging the encounter we put ourselves into was, we did lose a party member, but out of 5 or 6 of us, it's not too bad. And we did...
They'll get better.
It's acceptable casualties, right? But yeah, we came out on top. So it's a weird one, because sometimes you can put these encounters in and be like, do not mess with this. This will kill you. But luck can go your way, and you might, come out on top in spite of yourself. But I don't think that was on the cards for us last night.
No, we had a chat about it after the session ended, and I think we've kind of concluded we just don't have the tools available to us to deal with that sort of stuff. So it's something that we're probably gonna have a look at when we get back to the town, to pick up specific weapons that will help us, because it's not going to be the last time we come up against a big, nasty gribbly that is really tough to kill. So
I think it wasn't just that we don't have the tools as well. I think we didn't put our best foot forward because we didn't really appreciate what we were dealing with as well. I mean, we're playing undermanned, right? And this is a good point that Scott made. So we're playing a 3-person party in what I imagine is a 4-person module. And when you encounter sort of foot troops in that module, it will give you 2 times the number of party members of ghouls, or 3 times the number of party members, nurglings or whatever. But when you get a monster, it just gives you the monster.
Yeah, there's no way of scaling that, right?
Yeah. and that's where I think we kind of met our first bit of resistance with it as well. And then I've built a kind of roguish character that is sort of supposed to be death by 1,000 cuts, but this thing doesn't play with that, and those little 1,000 cuts mean nothing to it. Same for yourself as well. I mean, your character Norgrant has mowed down literally mobs of Skaven in the previous campaign, but then he came up against this thing and shot it, and it was,
my exact words were, in character, shit, that didn't do as much damage as I thought it would.
Yeah. We're kind of seeing a little bit of maybe where we've got chinks in our armor as a group in that sense. But we did learn a little bit more about how heavy damage works.
Yeah.
which we've not really seen. We learned a little bit more about the Soulfire mechanic. That's 2 sessions, actually, in fairly close proximity that we've learned how heavy damage works in a system. Because we had similar with
Star Wars, oh my god. Yeah. We talked about that on a previous episode.
Became intimately familiar with the critical system.
Yeah, jeez. So some of our party more than others. So, no. It was a good session though. I did enjoy it, and I'm continuing to. I quite like playing Norgrand. It's a nice feeling playing. Who is normally quite a powerful character in combat as well. Like you say, he will just mow down like squads of troops like they were nothing. So that's a nice feeling, but it's also quite a humbling feeling when something like last night happens, when we've got this humongous spider that just won't get gunned down. So
why won't you die?
Yeah.
It's quite funny, you did the Josh Classic there where you talked about how much you like your character. You always like your characters.
What can I say? I'm enthusiastic.
It's a good thing. It just makes me chuckle.
Do you want me to talk about a character in hindsight I'm not that keen on now?
Go ahead.
To buck the trend. And we've spoke about this off mic. Carl Becker, who I was playing at the tail end of our Pathfinder campaign last year. A couple of reasons. I don't normally play spellcasters, and I decided I'm going to do... To my detriment, I decided, right, I need to do something different. I'm going to play a spellcaster. We were at level 10 at that point.
Yep.
High-level spellcasters are really difficult, guys. It took me... And I read through the rules for Psychic. That's the type of spellcaster I went with.
So that's it. You not only did you go for a spellcaster though, you went for an advanced spell casting class, because you went for the Psychic, which is like your Sorcerer Wizard plus on level of complexity.
Has a whole new system of tracking your power. You've got all these the psychic points and all of this, all of that, and basically the way he shook out in combat was, I just cast Psychic Blast all the time. Same spell, just level 5 Psychic Blast. That was it. That's all. I would occasionally try and do a Dominate person.
Yeah.
But that's quite difficult to pull off.
It is.
Particularly at high levels. So yeah. Not I didn't hate playing him. And in terms of the character himself, I had a bit of fun with him. I kind of basically I didn't intend to base him on Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but someone made the point that he's quite similar to Captain Holt, and I just went with that. It's okay, I know my archetype now. But
it's a good archetype.
Yeah. It did lead to some sort of funny moments. But yeah, I wasn't wild about playing him.
That's fair.
Speaking of Pathfinder, we are getting back into that on Tuesday as well.
We are, yeah. We're revisiting our Mythic campaign. So we had our first arc, which was Common Cause. Mm-hmm. Then we did the second storyline, which was Darkness Divides. Then we did the third arc, which Carl was in, which was Tomorrow Brings Many Things. And now we're moving into Assault of Ice, which is finally the fruition of Dave's character's Alanon's sort of tease storyline that never got picked up on.
Planted right in that first arc.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you guys just left a gigantic army to the north to slowly amass and make its move. So now they're making their move. So that's going to be really interesting.
It's going to be fine. I
think it's going to be... having played Star Wars for quite a while now with that group, we are still playing Star Wars. We're going to just alternate the games. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be a bit of a shell shock for some of you going back to level 13 Pathfinder characters with Mythic ranks as well. You have made the perhaps wiser decision of playing a Smash Barbarian.
I just want to keep it as simple as possible. Even at that, it's okay, right, I've got so many different weapon profiles now, and I still need to build more on Roll20 because, like, Barry made the point, my character's going to have haste, so I'm planning on casting that almost every combat. I'm like, great, need to make a whole new weapon profile now for when I have haste, and all the gubbins and all the rules, and yeah. Oh, wow. It's been fun. It's been fun building him, though. So my character is Lokag. He is a Goliath barbarian.
What's the name of your god? Is it Joffrey or something? Jeffrey?
Hold on. Right, let's not dive straight into the god. I'm going to say it's the god of volcanoes, right? Which makes sense for a Goliath. Comes from this very mountainous region of the world, right? The god, she is called Jeremy. Stop laughing! I didn't make the name up. Like that's the name given to this god in the pantheon, right?
Sure. Jeremy.
I just think of Jeremy by bloody Pearl Jam. That's I just get Eddie Vedder singing Jeremy spoken yesterday.
You know she's gonna get called Jeremy and Joffrey and every variation under the sun.
Yeah, I have a line planned for when one of the party pulls that. So
I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah, but no, it's gonna be quite. It'll be fun playing a big beefcake. I mean, I'm playing one in 5th Ed Dungeons and Dragons currently, and this is going to be significantly more complex and, lots more dice being chucked. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
It will be, and that'll lead nicely into our next crossover game as well.
Yeah, which we are hoping to do end of this year, right?
End of 2021, all being well, yeah. And I've been having just finally. I'm conscious we're running quite long. I've been having fun with a new map making tool that I found as well to build maps for these games that I've been running for years and years. I've moved away from my pen and paper, black and white maps onto the digital age. A program called Incarnate, which is £5 a month, so it's a bit pricey for a map making bit of software, but you can just make your maps and then unsubscribe. So,
wow,
not
that we would encourage that sort of behaviour.
Well, it's a service, right? If you're only using it for a month, you should only pay for a month. So,
fair.
I'm not saying I certainly am not doing that because I have so many maps to make now. That'll be me for a very long time. Everything will be maps to the point that I probably get an intervention brought against me for, Tom, we don't need any more maps. We're fine. Like, you've mapped out your house on
fun with maps.
Yeah.
Tom Mannering. Today we're gonna paint a map. So
it is really fun. Well, it's weirdly addictive.
I'll say this. It does a lot to bring a world to life, right? It's not a coincidence that, like, see, really early 20th century fantasy, like Tolkien, they all included maps with their books, right? And it's so that it gives the readers, or in this case the players, like a sense of scale and a sense of place, right? You can have a look, and we're here, and oh right, this land is actually quite vast, and we've got this sort of terrain to the north of us and that to the south. It helps make something feel a bit more real. So I definitely get, like, the value in doing it.
Yeah.
Are you going to map out the whole of Ashtar?
I'm halfway through it at the moment.
Oh wow, okay.
I've mapped out the eastern. So I'm doing like a world map at the moment. So it's not as detailed as the region maps that I've made for Boskenland and the Eagle Nations. But I'm doing sort of a world map that has a obviously very zoomed out view and shows you where all the countries and continents are. I'm doing a region map for the frozen lands to the north for your exploration. So that's going to be really cool, like bringing that to life as you guys kind of traverse it. And I'm going to probably do some others for some of the other regions that my other parties have visited as well. It's a really useful tool, and the good thing about this particular program, I will say, is you can do maps at very different levels. So you can do almost dungeon maps of your actual zoomed in dungeon map, all the way up to world maps. So there's a lot of range there, a lot of scope. I'm also going to build a map for your settlement that you built, Landros.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
And actually map out all the buildings and things, which Scott was originally going to actually do 3-dimensional, but now we can do that digitally, which will be nice.
Yeah, neat. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be good to dive back into Pathfinder and chucking loads of digital dice, but dice nonetheless. So, right, yeah. Will we call that a night on that note?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's hope that my full recording is here as well this week.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Well. If you can hear a distant scream, guys, you'll know that it was me. So anyway, look. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, take care. Bye.